Newly released journals of Ruby Franke and the abuse of her children. 2 arrested after troopers seize $18.9 million worth of suspected PCP. And a look at what's been happening on the local baseball diamonds.
You're watching St. George News at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica McLaughlin. The recently released journal of 41-year-old Ruby Franke, who was sentenced to prison for aggravated child abuse, contains some shocking and disturbing passages about the abuse of her 2 youngest children. The journal was discovered by investigators after Franke and her accomplice, 55-year-old Jody Hildebrandt, were arrested in Ivins. The entries depicted a relentless program as the children were tortured by starvation, exposure to extreme temperatures, and other physical punishments. In the journal, Franke described the program as, quote, an intervention for the possessed to justify her actions. One of the entries tells how the children were kept from eating and drinking, which according to Franke helped instill humility. When the children were caught drinking water, they were accused of stealing and would face further punishment, such as carrying heavy boxes up and down stairs, or they would be isolated for extended periods, which caused them to lose all sense of time, the journal said. There were many other punishments written in the journal which revealed the lack of remorse and empathy that Ruby Franke had at the time. After the arrest, both Franke and Hildebrandt were sentenced to prison on 4 accounts of aggravated child abuse, and in a St. George News interview with Washington County Attorney Eric Clark, he explained that the children are doing better than expected despite the trauma they had faced. A drug bust that took place on I-15 during a traffic stop landed 2 Southern California suspects in jail for possession of nearly $18.9 million worth of suspected PCP. 21-year-old Giovanni Dixon and 23-year-old Carl Carter Jr. were initially pulled over for a possible window tint violation. While approaching the car, the trooper reportedly smelled marijuana coming from the vehicle and then conducted a search. The officer found a suspicious package in the back of the car and arrested both Dixon and Carter, and they are currently being held without bail. During this year's Hurricane Valley Chamber of Commerce State of the City's presentation, leaders gathered to reflect on old projects and some new developments to come. Haven Scott has more on the story.
Part of the Hurricane Valley. Hurricane.
After the manager of the Gateway Luxury RV Resort let everyone know he was new in town, the mayors from the Tri-Cities met with residents at the Hurricane Valley Chamber of Commerce's annual State of the Cities presentation. Mayor Nanette Billings started the proceedings with some updates regarding the water for the future of Hurricane.
We're actually looking at 2 new wells, one at Three Falls, then south towards the Arizona border, right up there up on the hill. The Lowe's have actually gifted the property so we could have a well right there.
Mayor Kelly Wilson said those waiting to soak in the Zion Canyon Resort hot springs will soon have a groundbreaking.
They've started moving dirt already, and there's going to be a groundbreaking Monday, the 25th at 10 a.m. We've had a couple of other businesses come to town that want to start hotels this summer as well. So we may have 2 more hotels under construction.
But the big news in La Verkin has already started taking shape next to the elementary school.
That is going to be a business park where people can either rent or I think they might even sell the business buildings that they're put in there.
Thanks, Haven. And speaking of construction, Quail Creek State Park is undergoing some of its own. Here's Maury Kessler on the ongoing pipeline project.
5300 West, the road that runs along the western side of Quail Creek Reservoir, is currently the site of roadside construction for a new pipeline that will supply additional water to the eastern side of the county. The Washington County Water Conservancy District started work on the pipeline project at the end of December and involves connecting the Quail Creek Water Treatment Plant to a well system near Tokerville. The nearly 5-mile-long, 24-inch pipeline is being installed alongside the southbound lane of 5300 West. Currently, traffic is reduced to a single lane through the construction zone, with southbound access from Harrisburg blocked. The Water District hopes to have work on the road south of the main entry into Quail Creek State Park finished by June. As for the road north of the state park's entry, it will be completely closed between there and Harrisburg until the project wraps up later this year.
Thanks, Maury. St. George News reporter Alicia Lundgren has the story of a woman who transformed from being a traumatized young woman advocating for animal welfare to a chief mission officer and a leader in her field.
Holly Sizemore is the chief mission officer for Best Friends Animal Society, based in Kanab. She started her adventure in animal welfare as a young woman in Salt Lake City. Sizemore said she was moved to make a change by what she saw in her local shelters.
As a young person who just was really traumatized by what I saw in my local shelter. I wanted to do something about it.
She's worked with Best Friends Animal Society for 23.5 years and said her primary focus day-to-day includes helping her team succeed. Additionally, she said leaders should be opening more doors to people from diverse backgrounds to work in animal welfare.
Thanks, Alicia. And now I'm going to send it over to Cannon Seacrest to give us a look at what's happening in sports heading into the weekend.
Thanks, Monica. There's a ton of high school baseball games coming up this weekend, so I'm just going to go down the Region 9 standings. Sitting at the top of Region 9 is the Snow Canyon Warriors, who have games against Woods Cross, Lone Peak, Salem Hills, and another game against a team that has not been determined. The Pineview Panthers are in second place right now and have a game against Canyon View tonight and another one tomorrow against Hillcrest. The Dixie Flyers have been on a tear recently and are still holding on to a 7-game winning streak. They find themselves in third place in the region and play against Pleasant Grove, Taylorsville, Timpanogos, and Stansbury all this weekend. And in fourth place, the Crimson Cliffs Mustangs don't have any games this weekend as they prepare for their region matchup against Cedar next week. The Desert Hills Thunder are in fifth place with games against Union, Cedar Valley, and Juab all this weekend. The Hurricane Tigers are in sixth and will also be taking the weekend off of games before playing Desert Hills next week in region. And at the bottom of Region 9 is the Cedar Reds, who don't have any games until next week when they play Crimson Cliffs in a region series. Like I said, there's a ton of great games happening this weekend and all of them are being played here in St. George. Now back to you, Monica.
Thank you for watching St. George News at 5. I'm Monica McLaughlin with St. George News, your #1 source for local news.
This has been St. George News at 5.